Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second People's Party presidential debate response. We have an amazing panel today joining us to respond to what was another travesty of a debate. Less interrupting in this one. It just means that the substance was still just as bad and came across more clearly. And so we're here to dissect it. We have tonight, very happy to have Rose McGowan, cultural resetter, former Time Magazine Person of the Year, founder of the Rose Army. We also have Ryan Knight, a national progressive leader, host of Amped Up. Glad to be joined by both of them. Also joined by Amaya Wangeshi. She is a fellow People's Convention speaker, just like Ryan Knight. You'll recognize her. She is also the head of Students for a People's Party. She's coordinating that and doing an amazing job. So we have an amazing panel to talk about this and actually have a substantive discussion, which is so absent from these debates. And so first up, really happy to have Rose McGowan making some comments. She has a lot to say, as anybody who knows her can attest to. Rose, it's amazing to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I am deeply appreciative of the People's Party having me on their live stream to respond to tonight's presidential debate. I did not watch the debate. I don't need to. What the People's Party is about, and any party that's trying to break through the duopoly, the two-party cult-like system and structure that binds American citizens into being unwitting members of two cults, and then one cult overarching all of it. That would be the USA. That would be the system. I know what I'm talking about. I grew up in a cult, a world famous one. My second cult was when I came to America when I was 10. I was made to stand the first day of school, not understanding very much English, to pledge allegiance to a flag that I did not know. And I was old enough to start thinking about it and start thinking about why on my first homework assignment at this school, I got an F in the USA, which I thought was an A. I went home and I was like, yes, I got an S. No, it was bad. The question I still remember to this day, it was, what makes America the greatest country on earth? I responded, you're not. You could be, but you're not. You committed genocide for your lands, and you built your White House off the back of slaves. And yet you ask these people to vote for you. You ask them to pledge allegiance to your flag. You ask them to uphold a system that keeps their foot on their necks. Whose necks am I talking about? Likely yours. I'm riffing off the top of my head right now. But what I know and what I've thought about for so long is the structure of the cult that I grew up in, the intense one, and how I was old enough to see when I escaped my first cult, how similar the US system was to my cult. Like America, we call people outside scary, dangerous, other. We even do it inside of the country, right? In my cult, we called everybody, you, for instance, a systemite. A systemite is somebody who adheres to different thought than we do. That to me sounds very much like the Democratic cult and the Republican cult. Cults break apart families. They oppress your finances. They oppress your abstract thinking, your critical thinking, and how your spiritual and developmental growth will happen over the course of your lifetime. I started noticing that it was around 4 or 5 years old when kids in America started being told which gender they were. They started being told what race they were, and thus the things started to divide us. I was old enough when I came to the States to realize that that was some bullshit. It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, none of this makes any sense. When the teachers in my school said, we're going to get the commie out of her, meaning communist, talking about me, I returned and replied to them, Italians were fascists. I grew up in Italy, you see. The other cult was Hollywood. Now, Hollywood has a big part of the propaganda you're being sold by your cult leaders. Donald Trump, Joe Biden are the latest, but they've been there since the beginning. You could say whoever was, the head of the Puritans when they came, that would also be a cult leader, and you wouldn't be wrong. Cult leaders are charismatic. They tell you that we have the solution. They get initial followers, and then from there it works like a pyramid scheme. People go out and they get new recruits. That would be their children, perhaps. That would be their neighbor. That would be vote for this person, vote for that person. But you really only have two choices. Why do you have two choices? There's almost no other country in the developed world that is stuck like America, that is stuck with coronavirus on the scale that we have, an invisible enemy that our military might cannot solve. That has, in the richest country on earth, we have children starving. In the richest country on earth, we have endless police brutality. My friend was shot by a police officer when I was 14. His crime was being 14 years old and Black. It's a system that oppresses. It is a system that is a cult. And we must break free of the control of these cults. And now is as good a time as any. Really the reality is, I could say, and a lot of people are going to scream at me for this, I could say the male experiment hasn't worked. The male power experiment, because it doesn't benefit anybody, not even men that are not powerful. Only the elites, only the social network masters like Jack Dorsey, the guys at Google, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, for instance. Side note, when I posted last night on Facebook that I was going to be speaking after the debate, my Facebook account was deactivated. Just like my Twitter account was deactivated 3 years ago at the behest of Hollywood power brokers, working with the mainstream media, working with many, many, many who are very interested in keeping people without a voice, in keeping people that question and scrutinize the system and say, we can do better. We've been sold a bill of goods. You have been sold a lie. Right now, I'm in Mexico. It's where I live. I can tell you pretty much everything you've ever seen on US news, mainstream media, is a lie about Mexico. There are some truths, predominantly lies. It doesn't look anything like what they show on TV. It doesn't look anything like little children that should be put in cages. Thanks, Obama. It doesn't look like anybody that should triple down kids in cages. Thanks, Trump. The thing is, we've had cult leaders for too long telling us that they have the answer. But what the fuck have the Democrats done? Have they made a difference in your life? Have they put food on your table? When I came to America, I got free school lunch tickets, which they made very clear to everybody that I had free school lunch tickets, the poor kids. I went to school hungry. I went to churches to get bags of government cheese and frozen donated meals and top ramen, things like that. I know I am not just a person with perceived wealth, even though Google, in bed with many people, likes to say I have $6 million. I made a grand net of $15,000 last year. Who says activism doesn't pay? But the point I'm making here is have a voice. Yes, it's a scary fucking time. Yes, it is. But it's always a scary time. Mother Earth, in a way, I mean, honestly, from what our leaders have given us, our cult leaders, do we have a right to be here? It's terrible. There will be a lot of collateral damage. There is a lot of collateral damage. It's happening now. It's happening every minute. And there's a lot of fear out there. And I send all of you afraid, all of my strength. Is there an answer yet in America? No, but I hope a new day can dawn. One without leaders, one without people that trick you into thinking the reason we haven't achieved all we say we're going to for you, it's because of them. 4 years ago, I was in New Hampshire. I was a lobbyist at a thing called No Labels, a giant room filled with the whitest people you've ever seen. And what they said in there, and there was Senator Lindsey Graham was there, Joe Lieberman was there, the most powerful people, Trump truck outside, Hillary truck outside. Every single one of these guys, the powerful one at each table, gave each other literally a stump speech to each other. There were no cameras, okay? I tricked a PA into giving me the microphone at the end. I said, that, the moderator says to give me the microphone. So I take the microphone. I declare it's a hijacking. Why? Because I'd seen it in the movies. And what I said to that room, where I was the only woman with dark hair, that's the closest they got to anybody of color. What I saw without the cameras was every single person you see on TV fighting each other. Yuck, 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 yuck. A couple of the Democrats got up and at each table, the powerful man spoke. A couple of them got up and kind of made loose, comments about growing up with a single mother and growing apart. But how can we actually save more money to pass on to our sons? The Republicans didn't even bother with the preamble of the poor mother. They just went, how can we save more money to give to our sons? Capital gains tax, blah, blah, blah. I realized that night, if I had left there and not said anything, I would be like them. I would be complicit. I had sound rushing in my ears. I was alone in a state in the dark. I didn't know where I was. And so I did it. I got up because I had to state my case. Get off of women's bodies. Get off of other people's bodies. Get off of their necks. Stop killing. Stop murdering. And when I'm saying murdering and killing, I'm talking about our minds. I'm talking about the poison that is put in on a daily basis, helped out by places like the New York Times and Fox News, of course. The New York Times had a lot of people thinking Hillary was going to win, right? How'd that work out for you? What I've learned a lot about helping people like Tara Reid, Biden's accuser, is fake news is not just what they write, it's what they don't. There's been a blanket silence on me ever since, but I don't really care. I'll keep talking, probably until I'm dead. A lot of you probably hate that. I'm sorry. I'm not always angry. I'm not always mad. But when I think about injustice, then I go a little bit tough. And why not? We're in desperate times. We need help. And the help is going to be us. I get asked a lot, who am I going to vote for? I vote for burning it down. I vote for starting over. How? I don't know. That's not my job. I'm better macro, not micro. There are a lot of smart people out there. But here's the thing. We have to do it. Some point in our society, we are going to have to bite the bullet and just suck it up and do the painful thing and make the change we want to be, or you will be in a cult till you are dead, and you will pass it on to your sons and your daughters, and it will continue, and it will continue. So I'm telling you that you can break free. If you were born into that system, even if you've opted out of the system is still in you. Look at your fabric, the fabric that makes up who you are. Look at the thread. Is it your original thought, or has it been implanted into you? Has the fear of being not like the group you're assigned to, i.e. Democrats or Republicans, shamed you into having any kind of critical thinking or thought about the party you're in? This is a trap, and the trap's been set for you, and it's been set for us. I know we can do better. So I'm saying stay along, listen to the rest of us here at the People's Party. I believe, I know we can do better. Like in history, people have to fight. And sometimes the empires fall if we don't. I believe it's time to save the USA. Is it worth saving? No. Honestly, in my opinion, no. But the land is worth saving. The idea of democracy is not worth saving because it is a lie. We've seen it over and over and over. I know we can all do better. I know we can have hope. Just open your minds, think a little bit differently, and don't be scared. One thing I can tell you is that if you're hated, you will survive. I'm very used to it. It's okay. If someone says something mean about you, you're not going to die. So stand up for your beliefs. Fight for what it is. We're going to have to bite the bullet and take some pain. But I know in the long run, we can be better. And that is my hope for all of us and my hope for you. So thank you.
Rose, thank you so much for those incredible words, for that incredible speech. And I think you're right. You don't have to watch these debates anymore to know what they're going to say and to know how it's going to go, because we've seen this routine. We've seen it for years. We've seen it for decades. It never changes. It just gets worse. You have this literally the same people. Every election, people want to vote for change. And now you have up there a billionaire, I mean, a vulgar reality TV show billionaire running against another just embodiment of the establishment, the person who was literally just vice president. And that's why Trump was asking him throughout the entire debate, that's wonderful. Why didn't you do this in the 8 years that you were there? Great question. Great question. And so I couldn't agree more that we have to take it down, and we have to start over, and we have to reset, because there's no reason that people need to be living this way anymore. And that's why I love the way that you refer to yourself now as a cultural resetter. I think we need a cultural reset. We need a social reset. We need a political reset. We need an economic reset. And that's what we're working towards at the People's Party. And so thank you, Rose. Thanks a lot. And really happy that you're here as part of the panel as well with Amaya and Ryan. And so I want to talk about, more of what Rose said. I mean, Amaya, Ryan, would love to hear you guys weigh in.
Yeah, I just, first off, Rose, very powerful words. So humbled and honored for you to be in this movement with us. And you're absolutely right. So much of what you said resonated with me, especially the part about fear. Both of these parties use fear to control people. And both of these parties demand blind obedience. For example, if you're a Republican, it's sacrilegious to criticize Donald Trump, right? Like Republicans, you're not allowed to. Now, if you're a Democrat, it's the same thing. It's sacrilegious to criticize President Obama or to criticize Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi. But the problem with that is these politicians, both of these corporate parties, they are in government right now. They are using our government to enrich themselves and their corporate donors. And we, the people, are paying the price. These are our tax dollars. And yet we're not allowed to question. We're not allowed to criticize. That's not democracy. I mean, that is authoritarianism. And I love what you said about just how the foot is on our neck, because it is. And every election for the last 50 years has been the most important in history, right? Every time around, it's election time. Okay, this is the most important election in history. And you got to vote. Each party says that, right? You got to vote for Trump to save America, or you got to vote for Biden to save democracy. But if you just look back in the last 50 years, after each of these elections, no matter who won, the wars continued, the inequality continued, the injustice continued, the destruction of our planet continued. And the reason is very simple. It's because the problem is not Republicans or Democrats. The problem is Republicans and Democrats. The problem is the corporate duopoly. We have a government that has been captured by Wall Street and giant corporations and the billionaire class. And so, when you have something like a pandemic, one of the worst pandemics in modern history, yes, Trump has been terrible. But guess what happened? The first thing both parties did in February and March, they went and bailed out their corporate donors. They left all of the people. They basically abandoned the people and passed the biggest wealth transfer, to the billionaires. And we've seen the U.S. billionaires increase their wealth by $1 trillion, while all of us are suffering, while the people are struggling just to keep their heads above water. That is not a government that is of, by, and for the people. That is a government that is of, by, and for the ruling class. That is an oligarchy. So when people say things like, this election will decide democracy, I would say no, because we don't live in a democracy. This is an oligarchy. And if you want to live in a democracy, then you have to join us and help build a democracy. You have to get involved and organize outside of these two corporate parties. Look at what happened tonight. We're in a climate crisis. Neither of the candidates supports a Green New Deal. We're in a pandemic. Neither of the candidates support Medicare for all, support guaranteeing healthcare as a universal right to everyone in this country. We are in a deep, deep recession, right? Neither of these parties supports a universal basic income to put cash directly into the hands of the American people so they can use it. And again, the reason they're allowed to get away with this, Rose is absolutely right. It is like two cults who just do whatever they want, govern for the rich, govern for themselves, and we're just left fending for ourselves. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can have a government that's on our side. We can have a government that doesn't leave us out in the cold when there's a pandemic, that actually passes relief for us. We can have a government that guarantees healthcare to its people, and we're so far from that. But at the same time, I have hope that with movements like this that are organizing without corporate money, that's the one thing that corrupted these two parties is corporate money. And the movement for a People's Party doesn't take $1 of corporate money. When Nick told me that, that's what kind of got me excited and brought me on board. And we saw it too with the Bernie Sanders model in 2016 and 2020. He almost did it. He almost beat the system, with $3, $4, $5 donations without taking the system's money. Because if you just think about it in simplistic terms, how are these people that are part of the system, these Democrats and Republicans, how are they ever going to heal the system when they're the ones rigging it against us? When they're the ones corrupting the system? When they're the ones who are using the system to enrich themselves and enrich their corporate donors? Newsflash, they're not. There is no hope in either of these corporate parties. The hope is discovering that we can build something better, like what Rose talked about. That's the hope. And, this election is the first election in my life. For 18 years, I've voted Democrat every time since John Kerry. I voted for John Kerry. Then I voted for, who was after John Kerry? Barack Obama twice. And I voted for Bernie in the 2016 primary and then voted for Hillary. But this time I voted for Bernie in the primary and I voted Green. I just voted last week. For the first time in my life, I voted outside of the two corporate parties. And let me tell you something. There were so many people online who said to me, you wasted your vote, and how could you do that? And in my heart, what I feel like a wasted vote is voting for these two corrupt parties. That to me is a wasted vote because we know what we're going to get. Voting outside of the two party system that is failing us, it does matter. Right? If we can get the Green Party to 5% this cycle, they'll get funding. They'll get federal funding, so then they can build up. If you come and help us organize with the Movement for a People's Party, we have a lot of power to get to cross over the 15% threshold that you need to get on the debate stage. You put one of our candidates in 2024 that is actually fighting for the people on that stage against two corporate candidates, who do you think the people are going to relate with? After they've been fed this junk, like Rose said, we come into this world thinking, it's like you have two choices, Coke or Pepsi. That's it. It's like, no, there are more choices. There's Sprite, there's Mountain Dew, there's Evian water. We can make more choice. We can build and build and have more choices than that. And so that's kind of where I'm at this cycle. I don't see any hope in these corporate parties. The hope I see is in organizing with movements like this, where we can actually build something. We can build a government that the people deserve.
So true. And probably no one has more to say about that, I think, than probably Amaya. I mean, Amaya, more than the rest of us old folks, you represent the next generation, the people who are going to have to live with the actual climate crisis. I mean, we've seen in two debates, back to back, Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We've seen them all, running as fast as they can from a fracking ban, running as fast as they can from an actual plan to take on the climate crisis. Dr. Peter Kalmus, who's going to who's actually starting a climate show with us at the Movement for a People's Party, was a People's Convention speaker, was on our last debate response. He is a NASA early career medalist, climate scientist at NASA. And he said, these 2050 plans, they're meaningless. These 2050 plans are just, like there's 4 years, 8 years of someone in administration. It just means you kick the can down the road. And we've seen this routine for decades. I mean, we've literally known about the climate crisis for half a century. Corporations have known about it, and we do nothing. And the problem gets worse. And we set like deadlines. We like 350.org, the organization. It's called 350 because 350 was supposed to be the maximum, parts per million of CO2 that was safely allowed. Guess what we're at now? 410. 410. And guess what? It's not going to change 4 years from now or 8 years from now. We're in a cycle, and we have to break this cycle. And we have to break it by not taking corporate money, like Ryan said. We have to get out of it. We have to make our way out of it by doing something different. Literally, you do not heal a poison by taking more of it. The two-party system is the poison. And by continuing to do that action, we're not going to fix it. Amaya, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I agree with everything y'all said. My issue and what I really liked that all of you guys touched on is just independent thinking. I just think the everyday person has an immense amount of power, and we really are our own enemy right now, because there's so much systemized and so much internalized barriers and barricades to the progress and change that we wish to create. But if we all unite together, that won't even seem like anything. If we truly believe in our core values, I know exactly what type of person started up this lie that we have to compromise who we are, that we have to settle, that things are just the way they are. That is the number one argument I have heard time and time again. Climate, I've heard about the economy, I've heard about poverty. No one on this planet should be living in poverty. No one should have to fear for their lives. No one should not have food. This is insane that we're still here, almost around 200,000 years of us being on this planet, and we're still playing politics. We've been playing politics our whole lives. And it doesn't make sense to me that as a collective, we haven't really just consolidated our own level of power and just watch it grow. And this is not by any means going to be easy or going to be without hard work. It is. And in fact, I welcome that. I'm up for a challenge because I heed and I 100% understand with everything in my being that this country is inherently classist, it's inherently racist, and it's inherently sexist. Yep. People who created this country, they did not have the same type of mainstream beliefs that we have now. And because of that, those people who are in power, every single thing that they did had that bias. Their beliefs follow them into the work that they do. And that is the problem today. We don't have time. We don't have time at all. Climate is the number one push. If you don't really care about this or that, or if you're not affected because you allow yourself to live in a bubble of privilege and you allow yourself to hear and see everything that is affecting your fellow human beings, not just your fellow Americans. People are dying. People are being slaughtered. There is war. Who said that has to be, that's just a deal breaker. We have to stick with war. We have to stick with inequality and injustice. No one said that there has to be the oppressed and there has to be those who are oppressing people. We will always be greater than the small amount of people in power. And it really, I think the moment and the second that we realize that, I think we'll just feel a crazy amount of change. Because if you're in office right now, you should be afraid of us. You should be afraid of your people, because the only purpose that you serve in our government is to serve us, to serve what we believe in, to act in our best interest, no one else, not one corporation, not one person, not one party. You are supposed to do what is best for us as a collective. Who cares if it doesn't bring you economic, advancement? Who cares if it doesn't give you more land? That we're way past the point, and we should have never been so selfish and so greedy. Every single bad thing that has happened, every single act of injustice, of oppression, of hatred, of greed in this world is not just something that comes with the load that we're forced to carry. We are allowed to stand up and we're allowed to say no. We're allowed to say that politicians, you failed us. Why? Because you think you're better than us. You think you're some superior being force. You are us. And I think you need to get that through your head. Otherwise, you will be replaced. And I hope you will be replaced, because we cannot continue to suffer by the hands of people that we're giving power to. Understand that we are living under a social contract. Every single thing that we learn in our little history classes and in school, apply that to real life right now, and just understand that we are being tested as the human race. We're being tested right now. How much can we take? How much will we allow? Just because you are reaping some benefits of this unjust system does not make you just neutral. If you're not doing anything, you are always helping the oppressor. So if I could get one thing across today, it would be wake up and understand that there is no crazy force out here that is telling us that this is how life is, and we have to take it how it is. We can change the course of history, and we can start today with organizing with us.
One thing I want to touch on that you said, Amaya, that I think was so powerful is this idea that these politicians have instilled in us, that like you have to settle, right? That like we should settle for, just a little, we should settle for injustice, or we should settle with these endless wars, or we should settle for all this economic inequality. No, we don't have to settle for the lesser of two evils anymore. We can build, we want good, and we're going to have to make that good. There's a writer, Hunter Thompson. You can go look at his writings back in 1972. He said that the problem with the Democratic Party is every election they make this lesser of two evils argument instead of pushing for the meaningful change that we need. And he said that, he went on to say that they're until the Democratic Party implodes, that we will not have, because what's happening is the Democratic Party occupies the space of where a true people's party should be. And so he said that until this party that forces people to vote for the lesser of two evils every cycle, because you vote for that back in 1972, we're a lot of lesser evils away from that. And when the lesser evil, if you can even call them that anymore, is emboldening the greater evil, right? You see these Democrats like Nancy Pelosi. How are you resisting Trump if you're voting for his military budget, right? How are you resisting fascism if you're literally funding fascism? You're not. They resist in very performative ways. She does, I ripped up his speech. Like, that didn't put food on anyone's table. You know what I mean? So like, it's all performance and lip service. And I was a Democrat for 18 years. And boy, let me tell you something. I bought those platitudes, because the Democrats are really good at kind of, dressing up this corrupt system and saying like, oh no, look, it's the Republicans, blame the Republicans. Well, when you actually go do the research, you find out that the Democrats take just as much money from Wall Street as Republicans do. When you actually do the research, you find out that the Democratic Party is bought and paid for by oligarchs, just like the Republican Party is. So you come to find out that both of these parties, are corrupt and do not serve our interests. Now, while the Democrats are really good at kind of posing as our friends, the Republicans are just very brazen about their corruption, and they're just kind of like, yeah, we're going to war. Yeah, we're giving the billionaires a big tax break, and they tell us how bold and corrupt they are. The Democrats are more sinister about it. They pretend like they're our friends, which confuses people. It got me for 18 years. Again, with Obama, sedated us for 8 years with platitudes of hope and change, while he was giving more power to Wall Street, giant corporations, and the billionaire class. And so I had to finally see that, like, wow, these people who say they're our allies, they're actually, while the Republican Party stabs us in the front, the Democrats end up stabbing us in the back because they tell us everything we want to hear. But that's not how change happens. Don't tell us that Black Lives Matter, or don't just tell us Black Lives Matter. Actually defund the police and shift resources into Black and brown communities. Don't tell us that healthcare is a human right. Pass Medicare for all, the policy that will make healthcare a human right. Don't tell us, the Democrats tell us over and over again that climate change is real. Great. Stop telling us that and actually pass a Green New Deal, the policy that will actually do something about it, and end these fossil fuel subsidies that you still haven't ended. The DNC still is going to take money from big oil companies. They remove that from their platform, ending fossil fuel subsidies. And still Joe Biden's out there bragging that he won't ban fracking, something that has been proven to be bad for our environment. So we've got one party that's just blatantly bad for us. And then we have another party that kind of poses like the good guy. And I think that throws a lot of people off because the Democrats give us the lip service. But the truth is it doesn't matter. It's not about what you say. It's about what you do. The Democrats might talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They don't actually fight for the poor. They don't actually fight for communities of color. They don't actually fight for the working class. And we are in a moment in history where we need a party and we need politicians who will unequivocally fight for justice for the people in this country and for justice for the planet. And the last thing I'll just say is I thought it was so interesting. Yesterday, Barack Obama gave a big speech, and he said something that, again, he's so good. He's such a good storyteller and orator, but that's not change. Just being a good storyteller isn't change. And he said something. He said, to the voters, he's like, it's up to you. You have to summon your better angels. You have to call upon your better angels. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought about it, and I'm sitting here and I'm like thinking about my friends right now who are really struggling. The single mom I know who can't put food on her table and can't work because of the pandemic, and the government's not helping her at all. And really quickly it became clear to me, it's like, no. The American people, we're good people. We're fighting as hard as we can. We are making so many sacrifices. It's not us that needs to call on our better angels. It's those politicians in Washington. You need to call on your better angels and stop putting your corporate donors over the basic needs of the people and the sustainability of our planet. They have this thing where they rig the system against us, and then they blame us for the system being corrupt. Obama's like, well, why didn't progressives come to vote for me in the midterms? It's like, you didn't give us any policies, dude. You created Trump, this corporatist neoliberal agenda that the Democrats have been pushing, this pro-Wall Street, pro-war agenda. That agenda is what led us to Donald Trump. So, if you think that just getting rid of Donald Trump is going to heal and fix this nation, it's not, because our problem is not one corrupt president. Our problem is that our entire system is corrupt. And like Rose says, we need a new system. And what the People's Party is about is building a movement with a party that is corporate free, so that we can have, that is systemic change, to get and elect people to Congress and hopefully a president in 2024 that isn't bought and paid for. Because then what happens is we can get into Congress and we can rewrite these laws that have been rigged against the people. You can rewrite these laws that favor Wall Street, that favor the billionaire class. You can rewrite these laws so that everyone in this nation, like Amaya said, can live with dignity. And everyone in this nation deserves to live with dignity, because we all have worth, no matter how much money you make or don't make. But the problem is, as long as we keep fighting with each other, then we don't see that. That's why they do this red versus blue. That's why they do the Fox News versus the MSNBC, because while the 99% is fighting each other, we're too busy to notice that the politicians are rigging the system for the 1%. And so we've got to stop fighting with each other, and we've got to come together in the millions and build a multiracial, multi-generational coalition of working class people who in the past voted Republican, voted Democratic, I don't care, voted for independent, but want to vote for a party that will truly represent the people and the ideals that this nation should be.
Thank you.
Rose, I would love to know, when did you come to feel this way? I mean, for how long, have you felt this way, and what has really kind of like made that difference to you?
Good question. When I was 11, I handed out, if you remember, a guy named Dukakis. You won't, Amaya. Thank you, by the way, Amaya, for you gave me hope, true hope, not better angels, real hope. I appreciate you very much. And I was handing out Vote Dukakis cigarettes, Democrat Dukakis, in a little cellophane bags up until midnight. I don't know where my parents were. I was knocking on doors. My mom is such a hardcore Democrat. And I was raised like, if these Republicans would just get out of our way, things would be better. No, that is not the case. That is not the truth. And it's all interconnected, And I knew Hollywood was CIA's propaganda machine. And I knew it was the government and the military industrial complex's propaganda machine. And I knew, like, oh yeah, Top Gun comes out. Well, we need more people to join the military. And boom, right. It goes up. I know, I worked in Hollywood. And I know cult leaders. My father was one, a very powerful man. And the thing is like, whenever they say leader of the free world, I like to put cult leader, free world. What are you talking about? What free world? And I got like, I even orchestrated Hillary Clinton meeting my mother about 5 years ago. Two awkward ladies standing next to each other in a photo. And when I really crystallized for me just how dark and evil it was when Ronan Farrow came out with his reporting that it was Hillary Clinton's spokesperson that made, on her behalf, one call to the brass, who was also disgusting, at NBC News, and got the expose that I'd set up shut down on a serial rapist. Wow. The press won't call him that, but he is a serial rapist. They just say, like, disgraced producer, fallen producer. Women are tired of being raped. Boys are tired of being raped. Men are tired of being raped. Our minds are tired of being raped, not just our bodies. And for me, wear a damn red hat. I can see who you are. I would rather know who my enemy is. And I don't think they are enemies. I think the thing is, it's like almost like how the liberal leftist media, and when I say that, I mean that in a way that's like, they're false, they're fake liberals. They adhere to the same exact elite 0.001% system.
Yep.
The system of wealth, the system of power. So Bezos, what, you got $1 trillion now? Thanks a lot. Thanks for your help. But make sure you do a fundraising drive for your employees, you good Democrat, you. Stuff like that. It's like stuff that, like, it was after this, I started, and after like fighting, I'm suing one of the most famous lawyers in America, who was Al Gore's lawyer in Gore v. Bush for criminal conspiracy under the RICO Act. And his name's David Boyce, and he's in my opinion, a devil, and he is a good, strong Democrat. Hillary Rosen, good, strong Democrat behind Anita Dunn, former head of Time's Up, now Biden's campaign. Time's Up was thinking of helping Tara Reade until Biden donated $1 million. It's all interconnected. So it wasn't one thing. Are you
saying their principles and their values are for sale?
It was a colossal amount of disgusting things. And I was finally like, I was always uncomfortable having to say I was a Democrat. I didn't like it. And I hated being called a Hollywood liberal. I'm like, I'm liberal in the sense that I have a free mind, but I don't adhere to this bullshit of like, we would do it, we just can't because the bad guys are stopping us. No, you're the bad guy, and you're worse because you're hiding it and saying you're good. You're tricking people. You are worse. Give me a devil I can see. That's what I.
And I mean, like, that gets to something that, like, is at the heart of this. That is, there's no fixed principles with these two parties.
No, there are fixed principles. They're the same principles, babe.
That's true.
They're very fixed.
Money
and power.
On that room with no cameras, like, your brain would pop. It was That was the night I took off the mask of an activist. And by the time I got home to the hotel from hijacking that event, I didn't know what else to say. CNN, Rose McGowan angrily storms out of political event. I walked out across that entire room like this, silently, slowly. And I had the audio, I've recorded it. And I was like, checkmate. And I'm so sick of the media being in lockstep. You want to complain like with these monsters and they all know it. The journalists know it. The companies know it. They know it. They're part of the corporate sponsorship, and they're worried their corporate sponsorship will get pulled. I don't understand the hold that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton have over the media. I don't get that. Like, what have the Clinton? I mean, I understand more Obama because optics, but like the Clintons, what? I don't get this blind adherence and worship. Nancy Pelosi on your knee, fuck off.
No, what struck me when you're speaking, Rose, is that their values are whatever gets them more power, right? And whatever can prop up this rigged system. Yeah, because the Democratic Party's position in 2018 was, when it was politically advantageous for the party, was we believe all women. Just that was the policy, right? When Kavanaugh's accuser came forward, and when it was politically beneficial, it was believe all women. Well, the moment a woman, Tara Reid, came forward accusing Joe Biden, it went from believe all women to shame, harass, and dox all women, because I had Tara on my podcast, and they just destroyed her.
Yeah, Democrats, the good ones, the good guys, constantly are chanting on her Twitter account, lock her up.
Incredible.
And you think you're morally superior? You think because you have a blue check next to your name and wear a blue suit that you are in fact morally superior? Where? That you're not, I voted for Obama, ergo I'm not racist. I said I was anti-Kavanaugh. Why did Twitter put Me Too as a pink icon? It's not a pink thing. Me Too is a communication tool. That's it. Did this happen to you? Me Too. And that's a huge thing. But they've even co-opted that and called it a movement. It's not. It's a groundbreaking communication tool. Nobody had that before. No survivors had a way to actually express their pain without like some drunk night where you're going deep into it with someone and embarrassed about it the next day. Now there's a shorthand for pain. That's a huge, huge thing. The movement, for me on my side was cultural reset. I was like, we're running out of time. If we don't address structural and systemic intelligence, teach abstract thinking, taser people's brains repeatedly with a different perspective. They wanted to kill me, many people, left and right. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if you're young, doesn't matter if you're old. You can be a sexist piece of shit just like any of them. You can hate just like any of them, and you can do it on Democratic side. So don't think you're superior because you're a Democrat. And don't think you're superior or, closer to God because you're a Republican. Both are lies. And the truth is you can be free. This is a bigger, bigger, bigger problem than Republicans and Democrats. Yep. This is the elites killing the poor, eating the poor. We need to turn it around. We need to fight back in any way we can. It's a sick system. It must end. And that's, and I believe that they started maybe with higher ideals, either that or they're just sociopaths. I don't know. But it's one of the two, or maybe both, but they're gone.
Yeah. But it's so true about, the problem is the systemic corruption, but the reason they don't like free thinkers like you, Rose, and anyone who has any kind of free thought, because that free thought is the greatest weapon against people who are broken into these two factions and are so tribalized, right? And so it is like you can't think within the system when the system is failing us. We have to start thinking outside of the system. We have to start thinking outside of the box. And that's why anyone who starts to think outside of the box and starts to fight for something better is always demonized by the people who just want to maintain this corrupt system. So, I mean, I am all for,
It's
this
amazing
whole,
how many people adhere to it, though. People in the
Yeah.
public, they just, it's like they do, cult members do not like it when you tell them they're in a cult. They freak out.
Yeah.
If you pose a threat to indoctrinated thought, they will shut you down at all costs.
Yep.
And I just don't understand, like, besides for the rich people, what's the gain of the population doing that?
Nothing.
You know, America's number 57 on the press list, meaning we're the number 57 on telling the truth in press. Most of the press is liberal or left, right? Sides of the Democrats.
Things just continue.
And they continue, but it needs to stop. I have to go, but I am thrilled to be a part of this. Amaya, Nick, Ryan, thank you so much. This is Pearl, everybody, aka Perlita.
Hi, Pearl.
And Pearl says vote for anything but the system that is oppressing you in ways you're not even aware of. And it's not fair. They steal you so young. They steal your mind. They had me passing out cigarettes that said vote Dukakis at age 11, for God's sakes. You know, I know we can do better. I believe in us. I believe in the power of the people. We just have to fight back and say no. And it is sad, you know. It is like, now it's Iran propaganda, Iran interfering with our election. Oh, that's a handy thing for the DNC to say, just like they did with Russia. And do you believe them? You know, I mean,
that's how they manufacture consent. They have these narratives to keep us always in fear. And for war, exactly. Because the majority of the population doesn't support war. So they have to manufacture these narratives so that they can continue the military industrial complex. In fear. Exactly. That's how they control us. Well, it's been a pleasure, Rose, to have you join us tonight. We are so excited that you led off the conversation and that you are a part of this movement for the people to rise up and have the government that they deserve. So it's an honor to be in this journey with you.
It's great to be connecting with other real truth tellers. Thank you, Rose.
Bless you, Amaya. Have a great night, all of you. Thank you so much.
Likewise, it was nice meeting you.
Amaya, I kind of have the same question for you. You know, like we have such a strong propaganda system. You know, how did you arrive at the views, you know, that you did? How do you feel that how were you able to, you know, think outside of that? I guess I'll just say briefly that for me, it was the fact that I have Chilean heritage, and my parents left the country in the wake of a coup in that country. And that's always given me a connection to kind of like, wow, something really terrible was done, you know, in Chile because of the United States. They overthrew a socialist government, Salvador Allende, and they installed a dictatorship that reigned for about 17 years of Pinochet. 30,000 people murdered and disappeared in that, you know, and that's always given me kind of like a window, I feel, to like into a different culture and into thinking, you know, no, this matrix that we live in is not all of reality. And so like, Amaya, I would love to hear, you know, what was it for you, basically?
Yeah, that's super cool. My parents are from Kenya, so I totally get that kind of outside perspective. And I think everyone needs to do that, really just expose ourselves to what's really happening around the world. And I think technology, I think that's one thing that's just been a blessing and a curse to my generation. But one positive has been the amount of information we're able to get due to globalization. I think it's so powerful. You know, what's happening in Nigeria right now, you know, there's what's happening all over the world. I think it's really just coming into light. But there was not a single moment. I know it's usually people have a moment, but I don't. There wasn't like one day I was like, you know what, this sounds pretty sick. No, it was just more like not necessarily a shift shift in ideology, but more so a shift in self-belief. I think
Mm.
that was what happened with me. Because back to this idea of, like when I first heard about this movement, I was like, that would be so nice. Question mark. Can it happen? So it wasn't
Doubt,
like
fear.
yeah. But immediately, like as soon as I had that thought, and there were so many people telling me like, don't do it, it's not gonna like go anywhere, you're gonna waste your time, it's not whatever. And I was just like, no, like why am I thinking this? If I believe in something, then I'm gonna fight for it. And if I don't think it's gonna work, then I'm gonna organize so that it does. And I think that should be the idea. I really honestly encourage anyone who has doubts about this movement, anyone who has concerns, who doesn't think it will work, I want you all to come, because you believe in what we believe in. That should be end of story. Come with your experience, your knowledge, your gifts, your passion, your fire, because we're going to need every single person in this fight. So I would say, don't listen to that voice in your head saying that's not practical. Just listen to your heart and listen to what you know at the end of the day is right, and really just be prepared to put in the work to make that necessary, because organizing is not this like glamorous like thing that I feel like social media kind of puts it as. It's difficult and it's all consuming. We're all tired. I'm burnt out. I'm so young and I'm tired.
I'm tired. Me too.
I still have to do that, but that's what my my main thing would be. Just believe in us and believe in your own power.
That's such a good note, I feel, to kind of leave it on, because that is exactly what so many people told me when, after working on the Bernie campaign, everybody told me, working at Our Revolution, like I, helped Bernie reach out to the superdelegates. I helped him found Our Revolution afterwards. But I said, I really don't think that these two corporate parties can be changed. And, when I said, I really think we need a major new party, everybody said, no, it can't be done. Like, you're going to waste your time. You're going to ruin your career in the Democratic Party and whatever. It's like, you got a good thing going, whatever. And I just said, no, this is what I believe is right. And I'm going to do it because I believe it's right. And and thankfully, because there were so many other people like both of you, like Rose, like thousands of other people who are watching and listening tonight, who thought the same thing. And that's how change happened, because they realized, you know what? Whether it's true or not, or what happens or not, it's actually up to us. Like, we get to decide. And so I'm really honored to have been here with you both, really honored to be a part of this movement. It's really an incredible journey to see how far it's come. We started from, a few people in 2017 now to more than 120,000 people across the country, more than 52 hubs. We have Students for a People's Party, Black Voters for a People's Party, Latinos for a People's Party. We have just an amazing teachers, academics, such a flourishing of this movement, and such a demand and thirst for it when people come in. And it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see the evolution. And so it's been wonderful talking with you guys.
I want to leave people with one thought.
Please do.
If you don't mind. Thank you, Nick. I was doing a little, I've been studying history a lot in the last few months. And one thing that really blew my mind, I've been researching different parties, because there were more parties back in the day. And the signature piece of legislation in this country for working class people, the New Deal, the reason FDR passed the New Deal, it wasn't the Democrats who were like gung-ho on it. They were still the same old Democrats we see now. It was because we had a strong socialist party, a strong communist party, a strong labor movement going on, who pressured FDR to enact that legislation. The problem we have right now is these two corporate parties are so comfortable because there's no competition. They feel like they can do whatever they want. So they just scapegoat the other side, keep kicking the can down the road, keep enriching themselves and their corporate donors, and not work for the people. The biggest thing that this movement and formation of a party can do is to, beyond getting political power for the people and taking and having an electoral strategy, we have a ground game strategy. We led movements outside of Congress people's homes this past year, demanding a people's bailout. We were outside of Mitch McConnell's house and outside of Susan Collins' house. And, but it will finally dawn on these corrupt corporate politicians that like, oh, wow, they're coming for my seat. Like, I can't just sit here anymore and not do anything for the people. And I think that is what's missing in our politics. These two parties are way too comfortable. They don't respond to us. They don't respond to letters. They don't respond to when we're outside their house. I guarantee you, as we form a party and start running campaigns against them, they will start to respond. And that's what needs to happen. We have got to increase the pressure on these corrupt politicians. And that's what the building up and organizing outside of the two-party system will do. As we organize this movement for a People's Party, we will start to pressure this corrupt duopoly and hopefully beat them in 2024.
What a great note to leave it on. Everybody join us. You can make the choice for yourself at peoplesparty.org. You can volunteer, you can get involved, you can join, help us start a hub, and you can help us make this movement and build up so that at the next series of presidential debates in 2024, we're not just going to be here, we're going to be on the stage. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.